All right. So what are we going to talk about today?
Actually, Rainey came up with this idea. It's relevant. It's always relevant. What do you do when a brand pitch doesn't go your way? It doesn't work out.
Yeah.
We have a lot of wins, and usually on the episodes we talk about, well, how do you get to a brand win? And for us as an agency, there's a lot more upfront than you probably meets the eye in getting not just an audience, the market to adopt the logo and a brand, but that first initial audience of stakeholders. So when it doesn't work out in your favor, when you go into that room and you start presenting style guide and potential logo comps, and that initial group of stakeholders isn't feeling it, what do you do? How do you salvage? Well, do you salvage anything, or do you move on and try to recreate altogether? And it would be cool.
You want me to answer that?
Answer from the design side, and
Okay.
I'll answer it from a strategy and account management side.
I think a lot of the time it depends on the client's response to the work itself. So that can be a variable that changes from client to client, and failed pitch from failed pitch, if you want to label it that way. Sometimes it hasn't happened often, but I think there's probably been a handful of times where we almost go back to the drawing board. And it's just, I don't know where the breakdown occurs. It could be maybe they had some details that they wanted or didn't want that they left out of the initial meeting. A lot of times clients will kind of pull the, I'll know it when I see it.
Yeah.
And sometimes that can work in their favor, but sometimes you're gonna handcuff your designers, because too many options is almost as bad as not enough.
I've heard you tell clients, and you've told the team, that our job is to get that out of them up front if we can.
Yeah.
It's not, if you hear, there are things internally and in the industry that will present challenges, like I'll know it when I see it. That statement initially is the time to say, well, let's define what you'll see.
Yeah.
And pulling that from them so we can get closer to what they're expecting.
Yeah, the more you can get out, the more you can get done before the designers or before the work starts to get produced, the better chance you have of succeeding once you get to that end goal and presenting to the client. Anytime you start a project and it's kind of wide open, it is kind of it's a toss-up. You get in that meeting and you can feel good about the work. I mean, we've done some great designs before, and the client just kind of didn't respond well. And
so you guys, the design team, and I'm in on these, I get to be a part of these, which is exciting to me as a strategist. We have tools and exercises that we've incorporated into our agency, and we didn't do it for years, but the living brand exercise, where at that point we're going through color palette, Pantone, all that stuff, textures, photo types, and just trying to get a feel for what the stakeholders identify as appealing first. I mean, we don't necessarily use all of it because there's a broader audience that we will have to be effective with after it goes live. But has that helped, having that upfront time
definitely
spent?
So there's a process we use, our living brand process, and anytime we've used that at the start of a project, it's gotten a positive result, because people can see tangible elements, whether it's font, photography, logo styles, and they can kind of go through that and at least give us some kind of starting point so that we know what their preferences are. Some people will pick less options, which is even more helpful, but any options they pick, I mean, that helps us get a tighter end result.
Yeah, I know that part of that process is we're trying to figure out what feeling do we want your brand to trigger, because we've heard in our own internal teachings and education, when we watch other great designers, and a brand isn't the logo, it's not the website, it's the way your business makes others feel. So there could be potentially thousands upon thousands of micro brands. It's the perspective of the audience and how you make them feel. So I know that our process, part of it is what feelings are we trying to prompt? What emotions are we trying to trigger? Because people buy with emotion. They either decide if they're going to get closer or step back based on the emotion it causes. So doing it from the design side, that's a big help. Now, I know we're getting way off track, though, because the question that we're supposed to be focusing on is, what do you do when
a pitch fails? Well, when the client sits there kind of blank-faced, internally you're just screaming, son of a pitch. But
that was terrible. We'll keep it.
No, but
That's a new ad campaign.
I mean, honestly, there hasn't been that many for us, like total, like failures in a pitch. I mean, there's been stuff where we have to go back and rework.
Yeah.
But,
I mean, maybe that's, and I can answer a little bit of that when there has been where we just weren't on mark for whatever reason. Like you said, yeah, you go into those early communications and there's things we do to get that out into the open early on so we can run with an appropriate expectation. But when that doesn't work, and you go in and you pitch and you present and you explain the rationale and the logic and the purpose it's gonna be rolled out that way, then you have to figure out, you got one of two choices. You kill the pitch and you just start all over, like you said, which has been rare, or you take the parts and pieces that are salvageable and you rework, other pieces into it. And you don't want either scenario ever.
yeah.
But I'd rather have that latter where we salvage and we kind of explain and try to figure out why.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people throw the baby out with the bathwater because it's not that they want to. They just don't know how to articulate what they like and what they don't like in what's in front of them.
That's important. Sometimes you can use the pieces that you have created that they didn't respond well to. Just like our living brand guide, you use those pieces as a barometer to figure out what worked and what didn't. So what about this?
I mean, you've seen groups get ready to throw out the entire concept because of a color.
Yeah, we learned that early on.
And we realized that, and we would throw it early on, we would have thrown it out because you just want to satisfy the client, especially when you're trying to get a name out there as a young agency. We've learned, like, before we wash away the architecture of the logo and just get rid of it altogether, let's try a few different things, font, color. And we learned a lot of times, we had cases where people with a slight color change ended up loving the same thing they hated a couple weeks prior.
Yep.
So I think it's our job, is from the account and strategy side, it's our job to really help them navigate the emotion of, well, I don't like that, and figure out, okay, well, is it all of it you don't like? And even if they say it's all of it, we slowly start to reverse engineer the brand work that's been done and pull parts out, add parts in. And usually when you approach it that way, we've come up
with a win.
With a win, yeah.
All right.
That's good. Good question. I'm glad I asked it.
Cool. Thanks, Rainey.
Thanks, Rainey. Behind the camera today, huh? All right, buddy. Keep
All
it
right.
up. Press stop.
Rainey, the red button. Hit the red button.
All right. That was a good one.